Don't bother trying to help other people because it is not possible. On the spiritual path, we think that we can heal the suffering and the pain of other people by sharing the ideas that helped us on our journey. We often see reality more clearly than other people and believe that we have the answers to other people's problems. But what you may soon find is that nobody really cares. And even if they do, often they are not even capable of receiving the information that you are trying to tell them. The allegory of the cave by Plato is a great example of this. In the beginning, everyone is chained inside the cave, and they are only able to see the shadows on the cave wall. That is their whole existence. They believe the shadows are their true reality, just as most people think they see reality as it is. But on the spiritual path, what you realize is that most people are living in deep unconsciousness. But one day, a prisoner breaks free and leaves the cave. He now can see all of the different aspects of reality that were previously unknown to him. He then returns to the cave to try to convince the other prisoners of the true nature of reality. But the other prisoners reject his ideas, and they refuse to leave the cave, because people are comfortable in their little reality, even if it is a complete illusion. Like the guy in the Matrix who realized he would rather be in a fake world and eat steaks than to be aware of the true nature of reality, of the Matrix. Here's another way to look at it. Has anyone ever woken you up during the middle of a nap? How do you typically react in this situation? If it's a person, how do you feel towards that person? If it's an alarm clock, what do you feel like doing to that alarm clock? My guess is that you probably wouldn't be very happy about it. You were perfectly happy and blissful in sleep, and then somebody disturbed you. In the same way, people don't want to be woken up. They will always have resistance and refuse your message. The masses of the world are living in unconsciousness. Even people you love, friends and family. And it's tempting to try to be the savior when you realize how much suffering they are experiencing and causing to themselves. You desperately want to wake them up, but the fact is that they are not ready. But even more importantly, you are not ready to help. You see, when you position yourself as a helper in any given situation, you automatically project onto that other person that they are somebody in need of help. Just as a doctor needs a patient in order to justify their identity, so too the teacher also needs a student. In this sense, we are not actually helping the person like we believe we are, but subconsciously we are trying to reinforce our own ego identity. And you know this is the case when you get triggered the moment somebody else doesn't react the way you think they should. Trying to help someone is almost always hurting them because you're always projecting onto them a false identity. You imprison them to a concept in your mind that is, they are in need of help. And this is a great pitfall on the spiritual path. When you reach higher levels of understanding, you realize that everything is exactly perfect as it is, even with all the tragedy and all the horrors of life. That when we are stuck in ego consciousness, we trap others in the same. If we are in ego consciousness, we project ego consciousness onto other people. And by doing so, we prevent them from realizing their own God nature. And this ego consciousness is what separates us from the God essence within. You realize that God is already taking care of everything, and God does not need your help. It's like you say, with good intentions, by the way, I need to help, I need to help, I need to go out and help other people. This is my life's purpose, this is my duty. And then God comes along and says, oh, thank God you've arrived. I didn't know what I was going to do without you. Go out onto the front lines and do your work. You're our only hope. You're our last chance. You see, we are ignorant in believing that we could do God's job better than God. So does this mean that we should just do nothing and let the world go to hell? Of course not. Literally, the only thing that we have to focus on is healing ourselves first. You cannot save another person who is drowning when you yourself are drowning. Spiritual wisdom is realizing that it is not your job to help or save other people, but rather by healing yourself, you provide a space of healing for anyone who enters your presence. Life will then send to you the people who need your help. You will not have to try to make this happen. Opportunities will spontaneously and naturally arise for you to be of service. And in the moment, all you have to do is act. Just be as you are. The healing, the help, will be done on its own. Not by the mind, but by the life, your God essence flowing through you. One story the spiritual teacher Ram Dass once shared was of a lady who deeply loved animals. One day she heard a noise rustling around in a pile of garbage. When she investigated further, guess what she found? A litter of small animals. I forget the exact species, but let's say it was a litter of gerbils. She took them to her house and started feeding them milk. However, she soon ran out of milk and had to find another solution. She thought, I'll give them some honey mixed with water. That should work, right? Wrong. She conjured up the honey water and started feeding it to the gerbils. And one by one, they sporadically started spasming and running around in circles, and in synchronistic fashion stood up, fell over, and died. The gerbils went into diabetic shock, and she killed the animals that she was trying to help. As they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Often we think that we're doing the right thing, or that we're being a good person, but sometimes our unconscious motives are not as holy as we'd like to think. There's this quote in the Bible that says, "You will know them by their fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit." You can tell what people believe by the results that they get, not by the words that they speak or the thoughts that they believe, the lies that they tell themselves. If you try to help somebody and the result is that they are worse off, then you weren't really trying to help that person. What you were doing is you were trying to justify your own ego. And ego is always selfishness. And because there was no love flowing, there was no healing experience. And I don't think people actually realize how difficult it is to see things that you are not aware of. Like when a car drives right in your blind spot, you are completely unaware. And because people are so convicted in their identity of who they believe they are, they say, well, I couldn't possibly see it any other way. But your results expose you. The key to exposing our own unconscious motives is to recognize whenever we get triggered. Emotional triggers are always a representation of an attachment to a specific identity. Often we get triggered, irritated, or resentful in our relationships to other people. When people don't act the way we want them to act, or reciprocate in the way that we want, this is a telltale sign that our intentions are not genuine. Because true love is unconditional, and fake love is, you do what I want and I will love you. When other people don't allow us to reinforce our own ego identity, the ego gets triggered, because in that moment, its whole existence is threatened. Often when we desperately try to help other people all the time, it is coming from a place of trauma. Perhaps an idea of, if I don't make this person like me, then they might leave. They might abandon me. So I have to try really hard to make them love me. I have to do all these things for them. But all actions are colored by the pretense from which they arise. So if you are unconsciously operating out of fear, you cannot serve that other person. Because in truth, you are only trying to serve yourself, hiding behind the mask of morality and trying to help others. But when you are healed, your cup overfloweth, and you can fill the cups of others. You do not have to try, and you are not acting from a place of trauma or fear, and so your fruits will be good. This is one of the great tragedies of life, because many good people are destroyed by their own good intentions. It's one thing for evil people to cause death and suffering and chaos. It is a completely different level of tragedy when a good person does it unintentionally. This is the magnitude of importance of why we need to heal ourselves. Even when we try to help other people, we have no idea to the degree in which we actually were successful. We can give money to a homeless person and say, look at me, I'm a good person, I help others. And then that homeless person goes and buys crack and overdoses and dies, let's say. Oh, were you a good person by giving that homeless person money? You will never know. But when you are fully healed within, you cannot bear bad fruit. Wherever you are, you will be a presence of healing with no effort. The absolute way to actually help other people is to accept them fully for who they are here and now. To not judge them or project any ideas onto them, to be fully present and meet them where they're at. This way you naturally respond to the other person rather than having some kind of predetermined agenda. Because if you have an agenda, that is acting from the mind. But if you act spontaneously from the moment, that is life flowing through you. If they need or want advice, they will ask, or they will present the opportunity for you to share. Otherwise, allow them to remain as they are without trying to change them. Because people don't like being changed, and people don't like being judged. If you are coming from a place of judgment and trying to change them, it will be reflected in the tone of your voice and the words that you choose to speak. They will feel that energy. They will feel judged, and they will put their walls up and be in resistance to anything that you have to say. They may even unconsciously do the opposite of what you say, because secretly they are a bit resentful because you were trying to change them or because you were judging them. True spiritual wisdom is realizing that God is already taking care of everything. We don't need to save the planet or go around trying to help other people. We simply focus on healing ourselves in every way possible. Everything in our life, everything that we do or think that creates suffering, we seek to be free from it. We then become like a healing station and attract anybody who needs our presence. Allow situations and opportunities to arise naturally, even if you aren't fully healed, because along the journey, you can still serve, but not exactly in the way you think, or maybe the way you want. Because you don't also want to fall into the trap of, oh no, I'm working on myself, I'm trying to heal, I can't help you right now. When in reality, maybe you were meant to help that person in that moment. And so you see, don't identify as someone needing to help themselves either, because that is the exact same thing. Rather than projecting that onto others, that's simply projecting it onto yourself. And in doing so, you will miss opportunities to serve. But rather, set the intentions of healing, and then put one foot in front of the other and remain in the present moment. Life is trying its best to facilitate your healing, but we often get in the way by trying too hard, by trying to control and manipulate the situation, to force things to be as we want them to be, rather than accepting them as they are. That doesn't mean we don't strive to change our life. It simply means that we refuse to live in resistance to life, because resistance to life is the source of all problems. You cannot solve your problems from the same level of consciousness it was created. You cannot solve your problems with more resistance with the mind, but rather you allow this divine intelligence within you, this God essence, this life, to just be. It is the force of order and harmony in our existence. So the only reason that we fall out of harmony is because we have cut ourselves off from this life. As I like to say, hell is synonymous with separation, and heaven is synonymous with union. Separation from and union with God, this life within you. The closer we get to hell, the more suffering and problems that we experience. The closer we get to heaven, everything works out on its own. Let God do the healing, and you get out of the way.